Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Fawn Hone. I'm a visual artist here in Baltimore City, and I am also helping lead this project called Preserving Baltimore's Koreatown, which you see out in the lobby on display. And I'm really excited to be here, and thank you, Michelle, for inviting us to be on this panel.
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Lee. I'm very honored to be here in this discussion. So actually, I came when I was 19 years old from South Korea, and I landed at the BWI airport. And first stop was my Lexington market here in Baltimore. And so actually, that was in 1982 December. And then I entered the school, Baltimore Polytechnic Institute High School, in January 1983. So I didn't speak any language. So I'm the product of Baltimore City. I'm looking forward to discuss on the, Baltimore's, especially Koreatown's, past, present, and future. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
My name is Taewon Kim. I can speak some Korean, but I is an interpreter. I speak just Korean language. 저는 1995년도에 미국에 경험 삼아서 들어왔었습니다. 저는.
Came to the United States in 1995 to have some different experience.
아버지하고 5년 동안 경험 삼고 미국이라는 사회를 보고 싶어서 결혼을 하고 들어왔었는데 그 당시에 한국의 IMF라는 경제적인 그런 위기가 있어서 아버지가 하신 말씀이 그렇다면 미국에 사는 게 어떻겠냐 해서 살다 보니까 31년 동안이라는 시간을 이곳에 살고 있습니다.
Initially, he just wanted to see what the United States looked like, and he and his father traveled here over places for 5 years. And at the time, there was a financial crisis in South Korea and then East Asia in 1997. So that became the opportunity for them to think differently. So they came here, and then since then they've been here forever. He's been here for 31 years. 31 years, yeah.
저는 지금 볼티모어 시에서 미국 들어온 후부터 31년 동안 스몰 비즈니스를 하고 있습니다.
He's a small business owner in Baltimore City.
여기서 가까운 그린마운 에비뉴에서 이곳에서만 22년 동안 비즈니스를 하고 있습니다. 그린마운 에비뉴. 예. 저는 비즈니스를 하면서 아까 잠깐 얘기를 나눴었지만 보시는 분들 저는 항상 이 네이버라는 생각을 하고 여태까지 지내왔습니다. 손님이라는 생각 이전에 그분들이 나의 네이버라는 생각을 가지고 여태까지 비즈니스를 하고 있습니다.
The way he was doing the business is that he treated his customer not as just a customer, but his neighbor. So that's his main business philosophy.
저는 이 볼티모어 시티가 이 전역에서도 유명한 도시 중에 아마 굉장히 높은 수준을 차지할 겁니다. 근데 저는 이런 얘기 해도 될지 모르겠지만 하나님이 복을 주셔서 그런지 몰라도 좋은 이웃을 만나서 오히려 스트레스를 받지 않고 심지어는 담배를 끊는데도 많은 이웃들이 도움을 주신 것 같습니다. 해피한 네이버를 만나서 지금까지 비즈니스를 하고 있습니다.
And one of the reasons he would successfully run his business up to this time is the neighbors that around him. He met good neighbors, and they actually supported him, even helping him quit smoking. And he wanna thank praise God for all the things that happened to him, and he's doing the business very happily.
여러분 만나 뵙게 돼서 대단히 반갑습니다.
We want to thank everyone for this opportunity.
And we'd like to introduce our last panelist. She was actually one of our lovely performers as well.
안녕하세요. 제 이름은 신명화입니다. 저는 1998년도 4월에 미국에 되었습니다. 지금 여기에 28년째 살고 있고, 저는 다운타운의 그 하킨스 병원 앞에 노스 이스트 마켓이라는 데서 18년째 치킨 가게와 델리를 운영하고 있습니다.
She came in 1998, and she works in Northeast Market. Inside market, there is a chicken stand and deli that she was doing.
And I'd also like to give our interpreter a chance to introduce herself and thank her for her role helping
mistake. It's not my fault. My name is 모라미. 안녕하세요. 제 이름은 이모라입니다. I'm a professor of history at the University of Baltimore downtown, like 5 minutes down there. And I currently am doing a project about Baltimore's Koreatown. So I met other wonderful people here. Thank you for inviting me.
And one quick note to the panelists before we get started. If you could please keep the mic close to your mouth. mic 가까이 두시게 드립니다. So our first question to open up the night is, Baltimore's Koreatown can mean different things to different people. What does it mean to you? Is it a geographic place, a business district, a cultural network, or perhaps something else?
볼티모어의 한인타운이라는 정의를 내리기가 참 어려운 단어인데요. 각자 볼티모어의 한인타운이라는 얘기를 그 말을 들었을 때 어떤 생각이 드시는지 한번 나눠주셨으면 좋겠어요. 그게 어떤 지역을 말하는 건지, 어떤 생활 반경을 얘기하는 건지, 또는 어떤 특별한 의미가 있는 건지, 좀 그 볼티모어의 한인타운이 무엇인지, 나는 볼티모어 한인타운을 무엇이라고 생각한다, 이렇게 정의를 내려주실 수 있을까요?
I guess I'll start. So that's a very thoughtful question. I think it will be very different for everybody, whether you're from different generation or, experience. So for me, it's like I said, when I came here in 1982, December, so I started at the high school, the junior, and I didn't even speak any language. But universal language was math. So through that math, I could be able to really study hard and have new confidence on it. But I think it's that Baltimore Koreatown wasn't recognized when I was here in 1982. And then also, not only, I finished high school, so I studied electrical engineering because of math at the Virginia Tech, and my master's in electrical engineering for Johns Hopkins. So, I think it's very, that many of the Korean Americans in Baltimore, they work so hard. I remember they worked 7 days, and then I even remember even my high school or college year, I worked 100 hours a weekly, and I was making $4 per hour, right? So, but that was big for me at that time. So I think it's not just Baltimore, Koreatown is just a geographical place. It's very, modern, our first generation immigrant, my parents, they work so hard, and so they have sacrificed. And then also they, they want us to get a lot of education. And then also, I started my own company in 1990, in 2024 North Star Street. So I even remember their address. That was 36 years ago. So it's a lot of small business. Like it's a thing. And so I remember that when I started business in 1990s, there was at least 5,000 Korean American owned stores. So every corner of Baltimore City, one of these liquor stores, grocery, a carry-out deli, or a laundry mart, and then, all this Lexington market. There's so many Harley's market. I remember, there's so many markets around, and many of the Korean American has owned their small business. So, so at the Lexington market, I used to sell produce market, even though I don't speak any language, but everything was 19 cents per pound, 29 cent pound, 39 cent pound. So, because I was good at math, I didn't need any calculator. So I was kind of be able to, take care of the customer very quickly because of my math skill. So, so it's I think that, Baltimore Koreatown was like all about the, many of the Korean American first generations, the second generation's education and a lot of small business entrepreneurship. I think that's the kind of, how I look at as a Baltimore Koreatown. And I know we didn't call that time, but and then also, we got connected with a lot of church. We even jokingly, every Korean American have more than 3 people, they always open up the new church. So, it's just, so we got, it's not just only for the worship, we are more like a connecting with God. And even jokingly, every time we meet at the BW airport, if I'm at the guy who runs the laundry, and I'm going to start the laundry business. So that's the kind of a story always we hear that. So, but, luckily, a lot of, that 1.5 generation and second generation, they got the education, so they really be able to, now they move on to the, not only helping Baltimore City, we look at as a whole state of Maryland, so we kind of evolving. We're not really, it's like our community is more dispersed, so we are evolving our evolution to, next level. So I'm looking forward to this kind of, I know, we have less, people living in Baltimore City, less Korean American, but, because of that, we are originally started in the Korean American in the Baltimore City. Now they are everywhere in Maryland, and also they are everywhere in other states.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you so much for that. And I think something that really stood out from your answer is that it wasn't called Korea at the time. It's very much like an informal understanding. Is there any of our panelists who want to speak a little bit on that, how the Koreatown was very much an informal?
물어보신 게 코리아 여기 보스턴 한인타운이 어떤 의미냐고 물어보신 거죠. 저는 1987에 대학교를 마치고 잠깐 2년반을 있었습니다. 그래서 그때에 이 한인들을 보니까 여기서 주로 비즈니스를 하셨고 이 한인회의 매체가 아니었나. 한인들이 많이 모여 살고 있는 데가 볼티모어였거든요. 그래서 저는 그게 굉장히 의미가 있다고 생각합니다. 지금은 다 이사 갔지만 그래도 한인들의 매체, 한인회의 매체가 볼티모어가 아니었나 생각합니다.
Koreatown was not officially recognized name, and at the time in 1980s and 1990s, that's where the Tri-North area, you had the peak time for Korean businesses surrounding this area. There are different numbers. I'm trying to figure out the exact number, but mayor's office and Maryland State government office, the number differs, but the one that I think most likely accurate in the report of 1998, there were about 3,000 Korean-run businesses all around Baltimore City. Of every corner, stores, including some of the Tri-North area. What she wanted to say about the definition of Baltimore's Koreatown was that this is not a single destination, but this is a place that bear fruit to Korean American community in entire Maryland. So this is an place of the base and foundation of today's Korean Americans in entire Maryland.
And I think that segues well into our first core of the discussing the past of Koreatown with the immigration, the settlement, community building that happened. So on the topic of businesses, what were some of the earliest Korean-owned businesses or gathering places in the city? Are we doing a good job of remembering those that are no longer there?
70년대랑 80년대, 90년대 이 한인타운에서 가장 많이 했던 비즈니스가 어떤 비즈니스 말씀해 줄 수 있을까요? 그리고 지금 이제 시간이 지났는데 저희 지금 후손들이 그때 있었던 비즈니스나 그분들을 잘 기억하고 있는지 거기에 대해서 좀 말씀해 주셨으면 좋겠습니다.
제가 1995년대 와서 비즈니스를 97년도 시작을 했을 때 그 당시에는 아까 옆에 있었던 말씀해 주셨지만 한국 분들이 거의 한 99%가 그로소리, 그다음에 캐리아웃, 심지어는 저는 여기 오기 전에 코리안 타운에 대해서 저는 사실 들어올 줄 사실 없었습니다. 그래서 어저께 이제 아들하고 이제 동네 내관에 들어갔어요. 비마을에 대해서 잠깐 하니까 코리아타운에서 들어본 적이 있느냐 하니까 그 사람들은 닉네임 얘기하면서 찰스 스트리트 있는 데가 코리아타운이다라고 얘기를 해줘서 좀 알게 됐어요.
He said until the last night, he didn't actually know there was Koreatown in Baltimore. He was working and running businesses here. But when he came here in 1990, most of the businesses the Korean owned were carry-out stores, small mom-and-pop stores, corner groceries and liquor stores, and those small businesses. Those are what Korean Americans were doing.
그래서 제가 지나서 생각을 해보니까 저도 그 당시에 찰스 스트리트에 나와서 집을 먹고 심지어는 이제 그 전에 있던 기존 세대들은 일을 끝나고 그곳에서 아마 들려서 식사도 하고 아마 그런 시간을 보냈었던 것 같습니다.
And he thinks that the Koreatown is a place for Korean American immigrants. After work, they get there, they gather, and they eat, drink, and they talk. So it's a place for Korean Americans to get connected with the other Korean American community.
그런 것들이 아마 코리아타운의 좀 유래가 되지 않았나 생각해봅니다.
Really good connection, and the community building is the core of the value of the Korean American Koreatown in Baltimore.
And thank you for that. And from those memories, are there any particular stories or memories from individuals from earlier generations of Korean Americans that Baltimoreans today might benefit from knowing about?
So I'm just going to jump in here because I probably don't know what I'm talking about, but I get it. I'm going to jump in and tell you why I'm here. Baltimore National Heritage Area is an organization that is about storytelling. It's about preserving the culture and the places of the people that are from Baltimore or within Baltimore. So that's kind of like the dotted line to why I'm here. So I'd like to address all of the panelists that have come to Baltimore and have become a part of this city, helping to create economic opportunities, social enclaves for the other people that come. Baltimore has always been a place where people come to for a better life. And so we want to preserve that history in collection with everyone. Most of you know that we have a Little Italy, we have Germantown, we have, well, Germantown's not really Germantown, but, and it's kind of like that. But anyway, there is a Germantown, we won't go into that. I'll say that there was a place that once was an enclave of German citizens that came to Baltimore. We had an enclave of Jewish Americans that came to Baltimore. If anybody knows about Lloyd Street, that has changed, of course. So we have these enclaves of people that came to Baltimore, to America, to find a better life for themselves. And as a result of that, what you want to do is you want to preserve that for them and their children and future generations. What I have learned in this work of preservation and as being just a part of the human race, we are all very much alike. We are not different. We come with different dialects, different appearances, but we all want a better life for our children, for our families, and we also want our stories to be told and to be understood and to share that with other people that come here. There are thousands of people that come to Baltimore, whether it is for, I'll just say to attend Johns Hopkins, or the University of Maryland, or Loyola, or any school that come to this place for a top grade education. There are people that come to Johns Hopkins, the hospital, for top grade medical care. But they don't know that there's other people like them here. So if we preserve these little places and tell the story, then people can feel that they belong even when they're away from home. So I'm going to turn it back over.
Thank you so much for that, Dante. And I think it really highlights the important role and work of BNHA in preserving these stories and sort of seeing a thread of commonality between different neighborhoods like Koreatown and Little Italy and Germantown and Koreatown, and how there is a shared mission there to preserve those different stories. Are there any stories that our panelists would like to highlight from like the earlier generations that you feel tell the story of Koreatown?
코리아타운에서 경험하신 것 중에 코리아타운에서 경험하신 어떤 일화나 그런 거 얘기해 주실까요?
이제 들은 얘기인데 그분이 지금 1953니까 지금 73years거든요. 그 당시에 많은 분들이 코리아타운에서 음주 감옥들이었던 것 같아요. 근데 그 당시에 워낙 볼티모어가 위험한 도시이기 때문에 술을 먹고 길을 다니는데 강도를 다니는 얘기를 하시더라고요. 그래서 확실히 이 밤에는 사실 위험한 동네였어요. 한인타운 왜냐면 한분들이 비즈니스 많이 하고 하셨기 때문에 이 수중에 현금이 많이 있다고 생각을 하니까 아마 그런 일이 있었지 않았나 생각을 합니다.
This is common in many cities in the United States, 80s and 90s, with the decline of the city population, the crime rate increases, and some of the Korean immigrants who came here in 1980s and 1990s, they experienced some of the violence. That's a story that you have heard.
And I do think that touches on like I think it's complicated in terms of how the population came in, and then as some of our previous panelists mentioned, there's been a greater population growth to the suburbs, and so there's been a bit of a fluctuation. I am curious, have there been moments where, you know, in the light of the population coming in and coming out, were there opportunities where the community felt particularly united? Were there any instances where there was a feeling of community and strength across the different Korean American business owners and residents of the area at the time?
한인들이 공동체로 이렇게 같이 행동을 하거나 힘을 모았던 그런 일이 있으면 좀 얘기해 주시면 좋겠어요.
제가 결혼해서 이민을 온 거는 1998년이지만 처음 학교를 마치고 미국에 온 거는 1987년도입니다. 그때 메릴랜드 여기 볼티모어에 한인 체육회가 1회로 설립이 돼서 제가 원래 전공이 태권도이거든요. 그래서 거기에 있는 그 체육회의 총무로 인발부해서 LA에서 체전을 한 게 있어서 거기에 참가했던 적이 있습니다.
In her previous life, she was a taekwondo black belt. She came to visit.
실제로 국가대표 선수였습니다. 한국에.
She was she was in Korean national team representing South Korea in sports. So she came here in 1987, not as an immigrant but as a visitor, but because of her profile, she was recruited immediately by Korean American community here, and then they started this Korean American Sports Day. So they did very well the very first time that Korean American community got together under the banner, and then they were actually able to go to the national competition in California, and she led the team, and she said that was really fun experience of unity of Korean American people.
거기에 갈 수 있도록 기금 모금한 게 더 키포인트인데 그때는 이제 코너에서 장사하시는 분들 그 상점을 녹화해서 거기서 그 도네이션을 받아서 그 돈으로 저희가 시합을 참가할 수 있었는데 그때 참 그 열악한 환경에서 비즈니스를 하시면서도 선뜻 기부금을 내주신 거에 대해서 아직도 너무 감사드리고 좋은 추억이었던 것 같습니다.
They needed to raise money to travel to California, so the athletes actually knocked on the door of all small stores, and then the small store owners, they work 7 days a week, no rest. They actually donated money for the athletes to travel, so she still remembers that. She choked up a little bit telling the story.
Thank you for sharing that. That's such a lovely story, and I think a really great example of like the informal connections that can happen, you know, even without the formal label of Koreatown, but the relationships between the business owners and the support to make that kind of trip happen. And I think that segues well to talking about the present in terms of the opportunities and challenges faced by Koreatown today. Why, and I'll ask the panelists, why do you think it's important to document the history of Koreans in Baltimore? Because we've talked a little bit about some anecdotal things things that have happened, but what is the role, like, why is it important to document this history, in your opinion?
I guess I'll talk about this. Even though I'm an artist, I do a lot of historical research for my own art, and but also just because, and figuring out how to like merge these connections, like how do we tell these stories through art. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like, history is important, and all that you guys have done is so important. And even though I'm Taiwanese, like not Korean at all, like, you know, I feel like all these little like histories are important. And even as a Taiwanese American who has grew up in like populations or suburbs where there's no, like very low Asian population, so I'm just like, oh, finally a community and all this stuff. And so it's kind of like disappointing to see, like, come here and like hear about all of these like former past, I guess, and despite how conflicting it is, but it is still very, very important to document it, to let the future generations, like me coming into Baltimore, I came in 2013, and even my two interns who did the walking tour, they had no idea. Like they just started at MICA for grad school, I think last year, and they had no idea. And it's like, well, that's like a very sad missed opportunity. Like all the hard work, all like the histories, and despite how complicated and for there to be complicated hardships, it is still something that for really the future generations or anyone coming from visiting Baltimore should know about. And I feel like it's even worse if we don't remember or if we kind of forget about it, which is not good. So I feel that even though Koreatown is not a formal Koreatown, let's say, but like everyone's history, your history is very important to what you contribute to like the future generations. So that's why I feel like, yeah, it's important. And I remember Shantae saying one time, like everyone's history is important. It doesn't matter like what it is. It matters. I don't know if you want to talk more about that.
Well, I will speak to my experience, and I'll tell you why my experience is why this is so important and what we're doing. I grew up not in Baltimore. I grew up in the Midwest. I went to parochial school. There was no reference to my culture. I mean, I have, of course, a Black family, but you know, that's our internal culture. That's not the history, okay? So I moved out here, and it was like, oh my gosh, I found my people. There's history here. My point is that if we don't take responsibility for telling the stories to our children and their children and their friends, then this is when we build these silos of ignorance. And I think that is the way to tear down the silos, is by documenting the history, showing all people, because even if you tell children, I mean, some you hope that there will be one adult that will learn something too that didn't know. But my point is that you understand, is that when we come into a place and we find out that there are other people and their history is here, then it's collective. It is like, I'm going to go back to my original saying, we are more alike than we are different. And yes, when we go to a new place, we look around to find people that look like us. But what's more even fascinating is to have something that tells me about that person and why they're here. I would not know why you were here if we don't collect the history. And so that's why it's important, because most people would think that there aren't Koreans in Baltimore. There can't possibly be. There are Koreans everywhere, and they are in Baltimore, believe it or not. And how did they get here, and why did they get here, and why did they stay here, and what did they contribute? We need to record that history. And that's why I'm here, and I'm very proud to have met this lady here, and this gentleman here who arrived here. He went to Poly. Oh, so you're a Poly guy. So he doesn't, so, you know, he'll go out and he'll meet, and so he'll meet people and they'll do the fist bump because he's a poly. But when we look at him, we would know that, right? But he's Baltimore through and through. When you go to poly, you're Baltimore through and through, okay? So my point is, I don't want to take up a lot of time, but you understand what we're trying to say is history is important. No matter what level you're at, it's important and we need to document it and we need to share it. You can't collect it and just keep it to yourself. We need to share it with other people.
That's why I'm proud to call Baltimore City my American hometown. And that's why I think Michelle Lee, who's currently the chair of the Baltimore City and Changwon Sister City. But 10-some years ago, Michelle and I'm the one actually went to Korea. So I'm creating a lot of sister city program so I have two non-profit organizations because I always want to give back to the community. So because of I've been doing government contracting for the last 36 years. So we created a Kobe government contracting alliance. Originally it was a Korean business enterprise, but after I become a president, I changed to knowledge of business enterprise. So we want to keep the history of Kobe, but now it's a knowledge. Now anybody, underserved community, anybody can join. Because I know so much about government contracting, we share there. So even I wrote the book in Korean because of 15 years ago. Everybody asking. So we are actually doing hunting together, cooking together, eating together. So like Shanti mentioning about it, it's the whole community, not just about the Korean American community. So we want to create also now Baltimore City is not a capital of Maryland, but I always believe it. This is the #1 city in Maryland. So we have to be in the global, community, so especially with the Korean relationship. So those kind of, every time Korean company or Korean, educational reasons, whatever when they want to, so we always want to connect with this Baltimore City, with the South Korean, any other city. That's what we create that Baltimore and Changwon, so we can do the exchange of not only the culture, education, but most importantly is the economy. So that's the kind of what we are focused on.
Thank you. And I love what you said about Baltimore being your American hometown. And I think something that Shantae mentioned is referencing that there's something specific. There's something specific to it being Baltimore, Koreatown. And so my next question to the panelists is, how do you feel that Baltimore's Koreatown is different from, say, Koreatowns in other places, especially with large ethnic enclaves like Los Angeles or New York, New Jersey, Virginia? What makes Baltimore's Koreatown specific to Baltimore?
볼티모어 코리아타운이 다른 LA나 뉴욕에 있는 코리아타운이 있잖아요. 그런 LA나 뉴욕에 있는 코리아타운하고 어떤 점이 다르다고 생각하세요?
지금 다른 그런 타운보다 다른 이유가 저는 경제적인 것이라고 생각하고, 옛날에는 많은 비즈니스가 볼티모어에서 있었지만 지금 리타이어 하시고 이러면서 그런 경제적인 흐름이, 또 한국 사람들이 알레카시로 이사를 가면서 지금은 거의 볼티모어 타운이, 한인 타운이 저는 거의 지금 2-3개 남아있는 식당밖에 없다고 생각해요. 그렇기 때문에 지금은 저렴한, 그리고 한인회도 알레카시로 이사 갔기 때문에 이게 더 디벨롭이 안 된다고 저는 생각합니다.
View that after suburbanization and a lot of Korean American business owners moved to surrounding counties, Baltimore County, Howard County, and Orange County, there are less and less Korean businesses, Korean residents in Baltimore City. So this is a critical time of the Koreatown. It's declining, it's obvious. So the panel question, I think, preserving the past is even more important than ever.
I think it's economics and it's generational. I've lived in other cities that have a more robust Koreatown, so I'll I'll use Los Angeles as my best because I was just there. If you go into the shops and the places there, the people that are still there are older. They stayed. With Baltimore, I'm just going to be honest, the complexity of what it costs to do business in the city makes people leave the city. The structure of security or lack of security made people leave and go to the suburbs. But I think it's more generational, that the older you are when you establish yourself here, you stay here. Now what happens is your children grow up and they find the suburbs and they go to the suburbs, but I promise you one thing, they will return. They will come back because that homogeneous activity of the suburbs is no fun. What's fun is being in the city with your people, with the restaurant and food and everything. They'll come back. So we have to create the space for them to want to come back to.
I guess one thing I want to add to is, I know size-wise, we cannot compare. Because of that, they have a, better community support. So I think that Baltimore City Korean American is much more hardworking, and they have a better adaptability. And I know there's at least a couple very successful business guy, like I don't know if you know Jung Kim, who went to University of Maryland. His J. Kim Engineering Building is by his name. So he's a Korean American. He went to Baltimore City Public School. So I think he's about 4 or 5 years older than I am. But he owns a Windsor, basketball, Washington Wizard. So he sold his company $1 billion to the Lucent Technology. His company was UV Systems. So he's the Baltimore City guy. The other guy is also Hyo Kang. He was an Air Force Raji. So he supports the U.S. Air Force. He's also a federal contracting guy. It's called Kyo Mac, but he's from Baltimore City. So there's so many that, because we are so under the very, pressure, limited resource, and that's why they could do much better. That's how I look at it.
Thank you for that. And I think that segues well into the final third of our night, which is discussing the future. Like, what potential is there? What opportunities are there, given that this is the present that we're facing? My first question on the topic of what preservation of Koreatown might look like is, does Baltimore need an officially recognized Koreatown? What would be gained or maybe even lost by a formal designation? Just give it a second to.
볼티모어의 미래에 대해서 얘기하고 싶어 하시는데요. 지금 볼티모어의 코리아타운이라는 그 이름을 정식으로 그런 이름을 갖는 게 중요하다고 생각하시는지, 아니면 중요하지 않다고 생각하시는지, 중요하다고 생각하시면 왜 그렇게 중요하다고 생각하시는지, 지금 많은 비즈니스들이 여기를 떠나고 한국인도 많이 살고 있지도 않은데 그런 노력을 할 필요가 있는지 좀 허심탄회하게 이야기해 주셨으면 좋겠습니다.
저는 필요하다고 생각하는 이유가, 아까 히스토리 얘기를 하셨는데, 이민사의 어떤 그런 결과물이기 때문에, 다른 데 보면 진짜 건담만가지고 저번이라든가 러시아 이런 식의 이름들이 많은데, 저는 볼티모어의 한국분들이 진짜 수십 년 동안 이렇게 지내왔던 그런 이민자의 삶이었기 때문에 저는 꼭 필요하다고 생각을 합니다. 물론 한국분들이 비즈니스를 많이 떠나긴 했었어도 어떤 역사에 맞는 어떤 그런 기록은 있어야 되지 않을까. 이 때문에 한인타운은 어떤 필요성이 있지 않을까 생각합니다.
I think it's necessary to have to recognize Baltimore's Koreatown, because the Korean Americans who came here in the 70s and 80s and 90s, they contributed a lot to the city economy and the city's culture, and to recognize those history is very important, not only for the Korean American, but also entire city. Shantae pointed out that story is part of our story, the story of Baltimore City and the Maryland history to be told. So having recognition and designation, Koreatown, will be very important. It's very important for me.
Yeah, I totally agree with Mr. Kim. And, you know, in Korea, we have a saying that, you know, a lot of people forget when you become a fraud, they forget about your being tadpole, right? So, but, you know, we have Maryland, Koreatown in Ellicott City. And because it was a little bit more politically, when under the Governor Hogan's, and they collect about $600,000-$700,000 to build a small two structure in the US 40. But most of the people right now, all the Koreatown in Maryland, is actually, they all came from Baltimore City. So that's the kind of, so I think, Baltimore City, Koreatown should be, even though we did not formally recognize, but we are the original and beginning of that history. That's how I look at it.
I guess I see it as from like an Asian American perspective, being in Baltimore and seeing how, Chinatown, is just left with a sign pretty much. And that there is not a lot of Asian representation in Baltimore City in general. And knowing that there is this like deep history of like a very diverse Asian cultures being here and being like the originals and all that good stuff, I feel, we need that. We kind of, even if it's under like the guys of Koreatown, for instance, like it doesn't have to be Asian Town, it doesn't have to be anything like that. It's just more the fact that like it gives us symbolic recognition that the city cares for us and that that it will, and that we are part of like the cultural fabric of Baltimore City, even if many, like API members have gone out into the county and everything, but it's still like the fact that it does symbolize like that we are, I guess, recognized for who we are and for contributing to Baltimore City. I think that in itself would be very significant.
Thank you for that. I love the comment from Mr. Lee about the through line from the Koreatown in Baltimore to the Koreatown in Ellicott City, and that there is a direct connection there. So thank you for that comment. And I think this segues well into my next question. Does the idea of preserving Koreatown in here in Baltimore, does that hold any prospects for attracting Korean American youth to either stay or perhaps return to Baltimore from the suburbs? What gives you optimism about the future of the Korean community in Baltimore? Can we just give a second to turn?
코리아타운은 이름을 갖게 되면 앞으로 미래의 젊은 한인 수험들이 이쪽으로 찾을 것 같은지, 아니면 그런 이름을 하고 기억하는 게 어떤, 우리 후손들한테 어떤 의미가 있을지 얘기해 주셨으면 좋겠어요.
So most people remember they say if you build it, they'll come. So you've got to create something for people to come to. That's number one. Number two is that, first of all, on this date, we are celebrating and talking about Koreatown and developing some kind of historical markers and identity. But I want to be honest, as the only person of color, I don't know how you define it, let me say African American, on this panel. What's important to me, because even though I believe that, and I've said it twice, that we're more alike than we are different, there is a diaspora of Asian people that most people don't even know. Do you know what I mean? Does everybody understand that? I wouldn't know if you were Korean, but let's say, I wouldn't know if you were Korean unless you said you were Korean. A lot of us ladies go to nail shops. We don't know whether Korean, Vietnamese, or Taiwanese are doing our nails. First of all, you gotta look inward to be interested, to be curious, to ask. It's not wrong to ask, But these are the kinds of things that will help us Koreatown signage or history would be great. But we also have to realize that there are other people that are going to come behind us, and that are going to want that as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I am all in 100%. Don knows I'm all in 100% because the history is there, the information is there, because of the work that she's done with her interns, and we will go forward. And then I would expect that there will be others that will come and speak up. But we as people have got to communicate, and we've got to share our stories, and we've got to be willing to allow people to identify their spaces.
사실 저는 이 자리가 그냥 저희가 볼티모어에서 뭐를 하려고 해서 저희가 퍼포먼스도 하고 비즈니스도 하는 사람이 스피커가 필요해서 사실 와서 이 취지를 정확하게 이해를 못했던 것 같아요. 와서 지금 얘기를 하면서 우리가 너무 편안함에 길들여져가지고 한인회가 레가시리로 이사가면서 기존에 있었던 이 볼티모어 한인회를 잊어버리고 살았던 것 같아서 정말 좀 미안하다는 말도 생각이 들었고, 우리가 옛 것을 기억하듯이 우리 지금 한국문화예술원처럼 우리의 것을 지키기 위해서 연습하고 또 우리 후손들한테 가르쳐주려고 저희가 하고 있는 것처럼 볼티모어 한인타운이 조성이 돼서 역사적으로 남아있다면 우리 한국 사람들의 그 이민의 역사에 그 히스토리를 알 수 있는 중요한 계기가 되지 않을까 생각합니다.
I think that having the Koreatown designation or celebration will help complicate or enhance the understanding of Korean American immigrant community. She actually said honestly she came here because she was invited as a business owner and an artist. She thought that was it, but through the conversation and discussion at the time she realized once many Koreans moved away from Baltimore City, they forgot about the origin story. The Baltimore was the original Koreatown. Baltimore was the place that provides many Korean American opportunity to grow their family and bring their family. So she thinks it's after this panel discussion, she firmly believes that it's a time for Korean Americans to remember the origin story and tell the story to not only just Korean American but also other Americans so that we understand this is a part of American history.
I want to add a little bit, I think because of, now we are in the AI generation, all the cybersecurity, innovation, I think that, Korea is, you heard about the Samsung, SK, they are, big conglomerate companies. And I think Baltimore City Mayor should really focus on our Korean American Koreatown. And especially with also, we have now a relationship with the Changwon City. And because it will make them really, Baltimore City to be a global gateway to the US market. And, I know many of these big, Korean companies open up at the Washington DC area because of politically they all, the US Congress is, there. But I think, Baltimore City is only, less than an hour away, and we could be able to recruit. I know recently they opened up one of a bio company in Baltimore City, I believe Nature Cell. So I think it was a few months ago. So I think this is, a lot of younger generation, they probably, when they see the Koreatown in Baltimore City, I know we used to go, harbor all the time. We have a Maryland Port Administrator, we have a Maryland Port here. I know now we have a cruise going on from the Baltimore ports. So I think we should be definitely focused on how to, that make that Baltimore City with this Korean American or Koreatown. And then I think we have some gift from the Changwon City. We should set up a, I think there's some gift we put on the visit Baltimore, that museum things. I mean, we need to be more now, advertised, or we need to do more, then people will know about it. We have the best hospital in the world here. We have Johns Hopkins, University of Maryland. I mean, we got every infra that, all that everybody's looking for. And we're not really utilizing. I think that's kind of a little bit, you should talk to your mayor.
Try my best. That's how I FaceTime with everyone. But thank you so much for that. It's great to see so much love for Baltimore on the stage tonight, and I think it's really exciting to hear about preserving the history that's been, while also looking ahead to what future opportunities there are, both for Baltimore as a whole and for Baltimore's Koreatown. I do want to open up the floor a little bit for questions from the audience. If there are any questions for our panelists tonight. No takers? Oh, yes. Let's get a mic up there. Thank you.
Good evening, thank you for being here. This will be ready to, please correct me if yes, Ms. Howell?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very close.
My name is Kelly Sheridan, and I'm a member of the program committee for the Baltimore Ethical Society. And sometimes we meet the impact of right across the street. And I was wondering, it would be delightful if I could give you my information and perhaps ask the committee with your permission to put your name up to speak to us on one of our Sunday programs in the fall or winter. We're always want to find out about hidden history. And I'm learning this tonight. I've only been here since 1984.
Also, a good reason why we have to have this history documented and why we need to have Koreatown cemented, in the city.
I live in Koreatown, and we have pigs running through it back in the day. But I would like to share information if possible.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Oh, yes, here in the second row, or third row.
Thank you. Thank you very much for doing this. It's fascinating to hear the different stories. I am happy to see a monument go up, a sign to go up, that kind of thing. I'm happy to see whatever goes on. But surely there are QR codes that will link to a website that's going to be an interactive gathering place. Are there books coming out? What's the breadth as well as the depth of the hope this year?
So I have I see preservation of Koreatown in 3 different phases. One is, I call it, what I remember calling it, I don't know. But pretty much the historic marker is just this kind of visual and cemented into the city. And then to me, I'm hoping that kind of prompts historic designation from the state of Maryland, or even Baltimore City, or even if we can get nationally recognized. So that's step 1. Step 2 is taking all these histories, everything that Mr. Kim and Mr. Lee has talked about, and talking about how just putting all that together and then creating a historical digital archive, so that way future generations of Korean Americans or any historians that are interested in this story and looking at Koreatown or Korean immigrants in Baltimore City specifically, seeing how that relates to the greater diaspora, how that relates to how are we cooler and badder than all the other Koreans in LA or New York, and just and we have to be a part of that. And so I feel putting the digital archive and trying to find photos and give a good survey of what the Korean immigrant experience was like. I think that's very important, and because right now it is extremely hard or very difficult to find online or even put together. There's not a lot of news articles, there's not a lot of, it's just me doing my initial research was very tough, and luckily Michelle Lee was able to start that research and give us a good foundation. And then the third vision is, we really, literally, you have to be written into the canon of history. So yes, a book as the final bookend of the project for preservation is kind of what I'm thinking, and thinking of contributions to essays, etc., people's experiences, documenting all that to me is extremely important. So that way really, like, literally out there for people to realize that, yes, there was this important Korean immigrant history here in Baltimore, and it matters.
So, the Baltimore National Heritage Area did a lecture series with Joanna Moore from Towson. And so I believe it's on our YouTube now, where you can actually, because when she went through the whole lecture, it turned out it was supposed to be Asian immigration into Baltimore. But it turned out, as she went through the whole presentation, it really was more about the Koreans that came here, because she explained the mural, she explained the restaurant, she explained a lot. My memory's not very good, but she explained a lot of that. So we have some information, if you're interested in just researching that today, that's on our YouTube, BNHA on YouTube. You can see that lecture. And so that is the start. I will tell you this, that she mentioned in the lecture, they are always looking for anyone to come up to Towson and help them go through the archives in doing their research. Because they said that they have it, but they don't have the resources to go through everything and document it. So that's just a little bit of information for you.
And I think we had another question towards the back.
저는 1975년에 미국에 가서 1978년서부터 볼티모어 다운타운에서 그로스리를 거의 30년 동안 한 사람입니다. 그래서 누구보다도 볼티모어 한인 그 다운타운에 일어났던 여러 가지 일을 많이 경험했고, 또 아까 말씀하신 대로 이 볼티모어 다운타운에서 한국 사람들이 많이 떠나게 된 이유 중에 하나는, 한국 사람들은 가장 중요하게 생각하는 게 교육이라고 생각해서 목숨을 걸고 정말 다운타운에서 힘들게 일을 했지만 자녀 교육에 최선을 다하고, 그러다 보니까 아이들이 성장해가지고 자기의 온 커리어를 찾아서 이렇게 자기 길을 갔기 때문에 부모가 하던 사업을 이어받지 못했기 때문에 저희가 하던 비즈니스는 거의 다 없어지게 됐어요. 예, 그리고 저희가 그 당시에 일을 할 때 저는 50년이 됐는데도 영어가 서툴지만, 그때는 한국 사람들이 그 언어의 그 차이도 있었고, 또 미국 문화를 잘 모르기 때문에 어느 해에는 한 달에 한 번씩 사람들이 총에 맞아서 죽는 적도 많았었고, 그 많은 희생의 대가가 있는 걸 지금 이렇게 코리아타운을 기억하고 그 코리아타운에 대해서 히스토리를 이렇게 남기려고 해주시는 데 대해서 진심으로 감사드립니다.
She's been here since 1975. She ran businesses in Baltimore City. She remembered the days, and she want to thank all the panel and all the organizers to try to preserve her story and sacrifice all the Korean American moms and dads to raise their kids and family. One thing she mentioned that Korean Americans value education, and that's why they sacrifice to give the best education for their kids. And as Shante pointed out, the generational thing, so when the older Korean Persian immigrants get older, their kids don't want to come back and run the business, and that's probably why many Korean American businesses are closing or moving away from the city.
And also, I would just like to recognize that this is a two-time former president of the Korean Association here in Baltimore. Can we get a round of applause for Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing your story. I think we have time for more question before we try to wrap up the night.
Good afternoon, my name is Rosa Clark. I'm president of the Korean American Foundation of Bellevue, Washington. I work with the mission lead. Our organization is to preserve the Korean American universities, and we actually let a lot of people know the Korean American university. First of all, thank you so much for hosting this event, Mrs. Lee and Ashley North. Because without this kind of opportunity, I think we cannot match you at all. My question is, when I got first I see the past, present, and the future. I understand Korean Americans' history past is the present. It was, I don't see that much of the present, and then also I don't see that much about the future. But by this chance, this meeting, I realized, so yes, we have a past. We have a physically Korean American towns there. But present is, yes, we have a few Korean business owners on the business and work with here and then live here. But when I listening to the panels of discussion and their story, so I feel like we have a present and we have a future. Because the reason was that we have a past, but it's not physically we don't have a Korean town. But we are Korean Americans. It was here, is here, will be here. It's that meaning we are Americans, but we have another subtypes, Korean Americans. We are everywhere. We work with the Johns Hopkins. We work with the governments here. We live here. We don't physically we not get together and then doesn't make any Korean town, but we are here. But thank you so much. Actually, Mrs. Lee and me, actually I was able to study in 2023, and then we doing like a Korean town walk. Then my point is like this: I never knew that. I don't live here. I never knew that what is Baltimore all about. What I heard is all like a little bit uncomfortable news and all the time. But when I studied more this SNF program, I noticed Baltimore is so beautiful. Baltimore has so much history. Baltimore has so much to offer futures. So to me, it's this kind of chance. I know more about Baltimore. Problem is, you stay saying, oh, why is not the Korean town is here? Because we don't know the Baltimore city about. Not many Koreans, we just know a lot of things from newspaper and so media. But I hope we have more chance and then more opportunity to let the people outside of Baltimore how beautiful, how wonderful, how actually future-wise bright city it is. So my point is, how are we gonna let people know about the Baltimore city? That's why I think I want to know, do we have any idea, or especially Ms. La, because you work for the city. So this is the first thing, is let the people know what is Baltimore about. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. I'll entertain it as the moderator. I think the work that we're doing within the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs and across City Hall at large is really, as Mayor Scott, Baltimore's Renaissance is here, and we want everyone to be part of that and part of the uplifting and the growth and the revitalization of Baltimore across the whole. And that's why, for one example, MEMA, the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, like we've connected with Fawn and her project and her co-lead Halen, and we're always looking for opportunities to uplift these kind of stories, whether it's from marginalized communities within Baltimore or the forgotten stories, and uplifting those so that we can celebrate together as Baltimore celebrates its Renaissance. But with that, I do want to take a second to thank the organizer of tonight's event, Michelle Lee, the chair of the Baltimore Trauma Statistics Committee. I want to thank all of our panelists tonight for their really thoughtful answers on the past future of Koreatown. We will be having a reception out in, oh, yes, Shante.
I just have one question. There's a photographer there. We're all, they don't need this. There's a photographer there. We're all here, and I'd like to make sure that my boss gets a picture.
Of course, we're happy to make that happen. As that's happening, audience members are welcome and invited to please dine on some great food from Pung and B1, which are actually two of the Korean restaurants left in Koreatown out in the reception area. And thank you again for your participation and attention to tonight's panel. Okay, that's tonight. So the reception is. Oh, and one round of applause for the interpreter tonight as well. That is tonight's program, and the food is ready outside if you would like to partake. Thank you again.